and welcome to the Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always, here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go through a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. Grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. This midweek episode is a little bit different. We're going to be going... It's kind of like the... Oh my god, Honest Game Review sort of week. It would have been an Honest Game Review, but it kind of is, but isn't at the same time. But I'm going to be going over D&D. For those of you that don't know, D&D is Dungeons and Dragons. It's a nerdy little thing, but essentially what has happened in the past several months, I have actually grown to enjoy D&D, and it's something that I never really thought about until I actually started playing. So I'm going to give you the sort of very basic rundown of everything in terms of classes, the idea of the game, etc. But essentially, if this is something that you would enjoy, I would very much like to get a idea that you would enjoy it, and I can do a lot more content on this for the midweek episodes, such as going into specific classes, like a lot more in depth, the whole how to build a world, almost how to be a DM, how to be a player in the game, how to do many different things with it. But I need to know the feedback on it, so anything that you guys can do would help me out in terms of rating it, sharing it, whatever. Really all does help. But let's get straight into this episode. So I'm going to give you the bare bones of everything, as this is a midweek episode. The classes kind of are very similar to World of Warcraft. You have stuff such as a wizard, a sorcerer, you have a rogue, warlock, fighter, monk, paladin. You have a lot that are very... they share the same qualities and spells and stuff as those in World of Warcraft. And you have stuff like... barbarian, which is a warrior, a bard, a cleric, druid also, ranger, and I think there's one more that I'm forgetting, paladin. Yeah, kind of. You have a couple that are a bit different in terms of blood hunter and artificer. These all of them have their own very unique different spells, their abilities and everything like that. But essentially what you would do is you would pick your class, and the DM, you kind of play a backstory with it. So you would put your backstory from your noble birth, or, you know, you come from the slums, anything like that, all the way up to how old you are, absolutely everything in between. The very minute details are actually what make the game more than anything. So within these classes, there are subclasses. So kind of like specializations, but essentially for sorcerer, this is the one that I know more than anything at the moment. Sorcerer, you can be a dragonborn. So essentially you're a dragon. This gives you really high armor. Armor being very useful when playing the game, as it means that the higher armor you are, the tougher you are to hit. Although you do have lower health because you are a sorcerer, but you know, there's all these subclasses. Blood hunter is one that actually is for a rogue, I believe. It's where you turn into a werewolf, I'm pretty sure, something along them lines. Monk, obviously, are just punching things. A bard, the cheeriest bard of them all, is when they're singing their songs and boosting the group, that kind of thing. You obviously have a lot of monsters that you can encounter in a D&D match, or not even a match, a game. This is very much down to your DM, your dungeon master, as it is referred to as. And what the DM essentially does is build the world around you in your mind. You don't have any game that you're playing. It's all, you're just sitting around a table. You've got your dice, you've got your little character sheets, that kind of thing. And it's very much an imaginative game. You're kind of building this world using their imagination. So an example is you walk into a town. It is a very small town filled with halflings. Halfling town. So you walk in as a human. You're towering above the buildings. You're double in size of all of this. all of these halflings are peering out through their doorways, their windows, just in shock and awe of how tall you are. They're, slamming doors. They're very afraid of you as you stride towards their guild hall, even though it looks like a small, like, doghouse essentially to you. You ask the leader of the halflings, what quests they have available for you. You kind of have to really fill in the gaps in terms of what are the buildings made of, what kind of road are you walking down, a dirt road. You've got an armory to your left, you've got a tannery to your right, that kind of thing. You can really flesh out each individual element of the D&D world. And the more effort you obviously put into the D&D world, and the more effort you understand this world, the more immersed your players will be. So, for a dungeon master, you do not have a character. You are essentially, kind of think of it as almost Morgan Freeman when he narrates movies, essentially. You are the narrator of this world. You are the storyteller. And the players that are at the table with you are the players that you're narrating this to. And they have to flesh out the world just as much as you have to flesh it out. You can give them the stepping stones, but they need to actually take the leap of faith off and just go with it in terms of so you're in this town, all that stuff. You've got a tannery, you've got an armory, you've got a guild hall, and you've got a bakery or an inn, something like that. And then you sort of pass it over to the players. It's like, what do you do? And it's like, okay, we could go to the inn. We could even start a brawl in the inn. And as a DM, you're kind of improvising if you haven't thought that far. It's kind of like, okay, so yeah, you kind of start a fight. You throw a glass at someone in the corner, make a sort of roll to see if you hit them or not. That kind of thing. So what D&D essentially is, the DM has made this world, and there are many different stories. You can make your own completely unique world, or you can do some pre-made worlds at the moment, and there are some which are very simple for new players, essentially. But you make your world, and you can either tell them who the big bad is at the very start, you can tell them not who the big bad is, but essentially they look to level up, kind of like World of Warcraft. You're starting off slow in a small little village or town, and you get quests, you progress, you level up, you get more spells, that kind of thing. But you can just choose to go straight for the end game if the players really wanted to. Although the monsters and the end bosses will probably be a little bit too tough for them. But it's a real story building game. It's a lot of role playing, and that's kind of what makes the game itself. You are your character for when you're playing this game. You are not yourself. You have your character. I'll use mine as an example, Aquin. This is before I was a dungeon master. Essentially, you wanted to look to role play that character. So, for a good one is my character is very, up themselves. So whenever they met someone who was they deemed lesser, they would talk very slowly, because they didn't quite understand, that kind of thing. And that all plays into the role-playing element of it. And the DM can obviously give you, what you need to carry on, but it's always about getting into that role-play element, and that's kind of what actually would make it, in my opinion. If you don't commit to the role-play element of your character, then it's not necessarily as enjoyable, because it's just kind of like, oh yeah, I slash his head off, or oh yeah, I cut his arm off. Alright, great. Couldn't you have made it more interesting? It's like, I let off of the wall with a heavy strike down on my sword. I, make a deep wound into the side of his shoulder, so much so that his arm is barely clinging to his body, that kind of thing. You've really got to put some effort into it. But there are so many monsters in this world that your DM can throw at you, from literally a spider, a tiny spider, all the way to God. Literally, okay, God. That's actually a good example. So all like and everything in between: elementals, undeads, fae like creatures, aberrations, beasts, celestials. You have absolutely a massive variety of monsters that essentially you can encounter, and you can encounter them anywhere. You can encounter them on the road. You can encounter them in a mine, on the oceans, wherever your DM essentially wants you to encounter them. Now, a good DM would obviously keep the idea of what he wants to do. So if you rolled a 1 to 5, then you would probably get an encounter. If you rolled a 5 to 10, you're probably, feeling a bit unnerved because you feel like you're being watched. And then if you roll poorly again, you might have another encounter. You might be a bit unlucky with your travels. You might come across a river that's and the bridge has broken down, so you've got to make an athletics check, that kind of thing. So you've really got to make use of everything in terms of the role play. Like if you come across a river in D&D, it's very much, okay, it's a river. I can't just stroll across it. It's a very fast-flowing river. The current is too strong for a gnome to simply just walk across it. So the gnome would have to make a jump, and that is a athletics check or something. If they roll really poorly on an athletics check, then suddenly he's swept away by the current, and the people in the party need to act very quickly to save him, and so does the gnome. It's like, oh, I cast, levitate on the gnome or something to keep him afloat so that he isn't, in the current itself, that kind of thing. And that's where, a lot of the role-playing happens in D&D. I think it's very tough to explain it, but once you get into it, it is very cool. I would love to do D&D content. I would love to go into the specific classes, what they can do, not just for you guys, but for me as well, because it would really help me understand everything to do with D&D, since I'm very much a noob myself still. This is kind of an honest game review, but at the same time, it isn't as well, because it's something that is very much true to, or kind of like World of Warcraft, in a sense that it's very magical. All of the classes are somewhat the same. You just have to role play it, essentially. But that is it for this episode. Look, I would love to do more D&D stuff, like I said. So please let me know about it. I would love to go over all the classes, the monsters, the different, or the campaign that we're doing currently. The campaign that I'm currently making as a dungeon master, and sort of my ideas. That kind of thing. I would love to do them. But thank you all very much for listening once again. Do check out the Patreon, as well as Twitch and YouTube. Constant stuff happening over there. So please show your love over there as well. But thank you all very much for listening. And take care, friend.